Two key New England Patriots back at practice on Thursday, and a very encouraging update on the condition of Damar Hamlin. Dr. Kyle Trimble is in the house. Stick around. You're about to be locked in to the Locked On Patriots podcast.
You are Locked On Patriots, your daily New England Patriots podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all of you Foxborough faithful. Thank you once again for making Locked On Patriots a daily part of your New England Patriots coverage and also your first listen every day. Remember, Locked On Patriots free and available on all platforms, including YouTube, so smash that subscribe button, download, subscribe to, follow Locked On Patriots wherever you get your podcasts. I'm your host, Mike Debate. I cover your New England Patriots for Patriots Country of Sports Illustrated. Reach out to me. Let me know what's on your mind on Twitter at MDABATENFL. While you're out there showing some love to the Twitterverse, please be sure to follow the Locked On Patriots account as well at LO_Patriots. Folks, today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, more odds, more lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. Pats fans, with all signs pointing to their Week 18 game being played as scheduled with the Buffalo Bills, New England Patriots return to the practice fields on Thursday afternoon. New England welcomed back two key players from concussion protocol on Thursday, while the news from Buffalo provided palpable optimism regarding the condition of safety Damar Hamlin. And we're going to begin there today. And joining us is a gentleman that I am extremely happy to have with us today and extremely honored to have with us today. He is a doctor of physical therapy, as well as being the publisher of BangedUpBills.com, injury analyst extraordinaire for all of the AFC East, and probably one of the hardest working men in the industry this week. Dr. Kyle Trimble joins me today. Kyle, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join me on what has really been a startling, a trying week for all football fans, especially in Buffalo.
Mike, thanks for having me on again. It has been for the fan base, and we're just trying to take it day by day and getting more positive updates.
Absolutely. And the positive updates that we received on Thursday, folks, definitely, and I said palpable optimism, probably a little understatement on my part on that one. Definitely encouraging, definitely heartwarming. And although he has a ways to go as of yet, the fact that Damar Hamlin is responding and really reacting to a lot of the love and the outpouring of support that he's received is truly remarkable. I said to open the show today that, encouraging news, and I'm trying to be as optimistic, but also trying to be as realistic as possible, Kyle, and I think no one would begrudge us of that. But folks, of course, we're talking about Damar suffering cardiac arrest following a tackle the first quarter of Buffalo's game on Monday night against the Cincinnati Bengals. Regained consciousness, non-verbally interacting with his family and physicians. His doctor, William Knight IV, gave us a little bit of an update on Thursday afternoon, Kyle, saying that it marks a good turning point in his ongoing care. He used the term neurologically intact, that he's corresponding by writing, opening his eyes, and aware of his surroundings. And in fact, he asked his physicians who won the game, ultimate competitor, right down to it. For the benefit of our listeners, my friend, please let us know, what does this information tell you? Is there anything that can be inferred here regarding his potential recovery?
The only thing I can confirm is he's getting the best care right now possible. That's the best thing I can take away from that. The next thing is appears to be neurologically intact. I want to highlight the word appears, because they can't do all the assessments they need to right now. So they know that he can interpret information, that he can relay information. He can, I don't want to say talk, because he can't talk because of the ventilator, but he can convey his thoughts and they're coherent, and he's understanding what's going on. And, most of the gross motor skills and function are operating as such. And I'm sure they're assessing the sensation in his legs and hands and, all the other body parts there with that. So I know that there was a point where they said they couldn't assess whether it was a concussion or not, because that's
Mm,
just part of everything right now. That's kind of a secondary injury and worry at this point. Anyway, but I would still be concerned about his speech and fine motor skills and some of the other things and decision making, processing. Those are the kind of stuff that they're waiting to see how he responds as he gets off the ventilator. And I just talk about this from a rehab standpoint, just how people respond from a neurological area if they're coming off a stroke, things like that. So those are some of the things you'd be looking for in an assessment, and they're going to get to that as he gets better and he's able to tolerate more assessments, and he's about moving around and in the unit, and it kind of gets weaned down to more of a stable unit. So it's very promising to hear that that stuff is kind of. He's not out of the woods yet, but it's
mm,
promising to hear that he has kind of gotten some of the big concerns out of the way. But he still has a ton of ways to go. It's still a ton of rehab, and the whole idea if he could play football again in normal life, that's all remains to be seen. But it's
mm,
promising that it sounds like he's going to make it to the point where he can at least continue living some quality of life. And that's all you can ask after, hearing that somebody had to get CPR on a football field. That's probably the scariest thing I've encountered doing this, or just as a healthcare professional in general. I mean, that's not something you want to encounter. Hey, I got to do CPR on somebody, or you heard that happen. It's kudos to the medical staff for jumping in and doing their
mm.
job as they were trained to. I get goosebumps thinking about how awesome they were at their job on Monday night.
They absolutely were. I completely agree with you. And actually, that kind of leads me nicely into my next question for you. In terms of the care that he received on the field, we know that we've been hearing so much about the trauma units that are in place during a football game, the responders that, were able to get to Damar in time, get him to the hospital. You hear about all these stories about leading in, the ambulance having difficulty getting in, things of that nature. It just seemed that the people that were on the field really deserve so much of the credit for Damar being here today. In your experience in dealing with sports injuries and being a sports physician when it comes to physical therapy, have you had any contact with the members of in general, not this specific unit, but how essentially does that work on the field where having these physician units in place to deal with things of this nature. Have you had any personal experience with them prior to obviously seeing them in action on Monday night?
Not too much from a professional standpoint. That's not really my area. I deal with kind of
Mm,
the after effects. I know that Jordan Rodriguez of The Athletic, she covers, I believe, the Rams, but she had
mhm,
a great article about the emergency action plan. That's worth reading, and it's not too long if you're not much of a reader, but it really detailed out everything that went into that. But there's a process for all that stuff. I know from sports injuries of myself. When I was in high school, I blew out my knee playing soccer, and I dislocated my shoulder wrestling. And I remember my athletic trainer having that process of assessment, looking at what's going on, and what that next step was. Like, he knew what he wanted to do in that moment. There wasn't that panic. I never felt panic. Like, there was in pain and stuff, but like, those guys train and they know what to look for and know how to react to it. So like, they're not panicking when you are. So like, these guys, they have everything they planned out. Like, they go over these meetings before. I remember reading that. Like, they plan out, they know where the AED is, they have who they're going to call, they have all this stuff planned out.
mm,
So God forbid this stuff does happen, it just goes off without a hitch. So
right,
I don't deal with it too much from a professional standpoint. I've had to deal with emergency situations in my professional workplace.
right.
And that's, you have an idea of how to manage it, but still it's kind of, I mean, they do have it down to a science, and it's incredible that they will get off with a hitch. And he said that those quick moments led to him likely, saving his life.
Yeah, thankfully the team was in place, an incredible team, and I'm at a loss for words to describe what they were able to do in saving a young man's life. And that's not an exaggeration, folks. That's not for dramatic effect. That's exactly what happened. Damar Hamlin required CPR and an AED device and treatment of that type on the field because of the traumatic situation that was unfolding. It was, as difficult of circumstances as you can imagine, and for them to be able to respond in the fashion that they responded in is truly remarkable. And we'll take it. It sounds very basic to say that, but very encouraging news out of Cincinnati today, and hopefully those trends will continue into the weekend. And Kyle, as I said, it does appear right now that 1 o'clock Sunday, Highmark Stadium in Orchard Park, New York. These two teams are going to line up against one another, and they will take the field. There was some question about that earlier on in the week, folks, but with the positive news surrounding Damar Hamlin, you have to think that both teams are ready to get out there and showcase and show what they can do. Who will be out there for the given teams, the Buffalo Bills and the New England Patriots? Dr. Kyle Trimble and I are about to dissect the Patriots and Bills injury reports, and we're going to get into a little bit of how this team may look, and both teams, I should say, may look when this episode of the Locked On Patriots podcast continues. But first, folks, I want to talk to you a little bit about our good friends, our sponsors over at PrizePicks. PrizePicks is daily fantasy made easy, and I'll tell you a little bit about how they work. You pick 2 to 5 players. If they score more or less than their PrizePicks projection, you can win up to 10 times your money on your entry. No competing against other people. It's just you versus the projections available. The entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. That's right, folks. It's that easy. Withdrawals are safe, they're fast, and currently operational in over 30 states and in Canada. So download the PrizePicks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive up to a 100% instant deposit match, up to $100 with the promo code Locked On. So if you deposit $100, PrizePicks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, PrizePicks will give you $50. So don't forget to enter the promo code Locked On at sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks.com. Patriots fans, Dr. Kyle Trimble, a doctor of physical therapy and the owner and the proprietor of BangedUpBills.com, joins me here today. Kyle, thank you so much for lending your insight, especially when it comes to the injury to Damar Hamlin. I know a lot of our listeners on Locked On Patriots have been very concerned. An outpouring of support and of just prayers and well wishes have really befallen us all here on the Locked On Podcast Network, especially Locked On Bills and our brethren over there right now. Joe Marino and I had an opportunity to do a crossover. I know you're a regular on Locked On Bills. Truly class act, and the Buffalo fans have really been amazing throughout all this, showing poise, class, and a lot of determination and a lot of solidarity, I think, being shown right now, surprisingly being shown between Patriots fans and Bills fans. But at Sunday at 1 o'clock, that may change just a bit because there is a game to be played, and these two teams will go ahead and face off. Playoff implications abound in this one, and both teams are going to want as many hands on deck as possible. We'll start by keeping our friends close, and we'll start with the Buffalo Bills at this point. Right now, few limited participants on Thursday for the Bills. Couple of non-participants, veteran rest, other than Jordan Poyer listed with a knee injury, but mostly veteran rest, I think, keeping him out of that matchup. The big name on their limited participation this week, at least according to the buzz in New England, has been Taron Johnson with a concussion. He's been a limited participant. Looks like he's out on the field. Tell us what you know about that situation. What are his prospects of suiting up this weekend?
So Taron Johnson, in what was played on Monday night, he suffered concussion when he collided with, I believe it was Hayden Hurst of the Cincinnati Bengals.
Mhm.
And get taken in for a head injury evaluation, the blue medical tent, and then taken out. And they never officially announced that he had concussion. So we didn't know his status until they announced on Wednesday when they released the report. So he's in concussion protocol. Looking back at my records, because I look back at the injury histories going back to college, this is his third publicly documented concussion, I believe third one in the NFL. But everybody responds differently to the concussions. We talked about that with Mitch Morse, this season, Tua Tagovailoa. Everybody has different responses to how they, come back from these. And I know some of the Patriots players are working through them, their concussions themselves. So it's promising to see that he's limited on Thursday when they're actually doing activity. But due to just the events of this past week, there wasn't any media availability, so we don't know if he was in a red non-contact jersey or what he's able to do. But if he's limited, that shows that he's trying to do probably some football activities. So Friday is going to be a big idea or a big not test, but indicator where he's going to be at, whether he plays or not. So we've seen guys where they go limited in practice and then they're not cleared. Isaiah McKenzie for the Bills had that earlier this year, but it's promising if they're at limited by full practice by Friday. But just remains to be seen what happens. They have to be cleared. So that's something to watch. And then the other thing I want to note was Jordan Poyer. You mentioned that he was doing not participate on Thursday. He's working through a lateral meniscus tear. I'm not sure if everybody caught that, but he announced that right before the Monday night game. He talked to, I can't remember who it was, but he's been playing through that. I don't know when he suffered the injury. He did ding it up against the Miami Dolphins, but from what I saw in film, there wasn't a mechanism to similar to that, the lateral meniscus tear, where that shearing and whatnot. So he's been playing through everything this year. So it just
Mm.
added to the list of injuries. But somebody to watch out for in case he does ding up his knee again, or if he tweaks it or something.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. That's a good piece of information. We had heard, or at least I had, about Jordan, but the fact that he did ding it up a little bit against Miami, that is something that is interesting, and we'll continue to to monitor that from a Patriots perspective. But as you can tell, the New England Patriots have quite the extensive list of limited participants as well. Devon Godchow out with an illness, not completely sure what that means for his status. Devon has been a very key member of the interior of that defensive line. Was not on Wednesday's report at the time Kyle and I are recording, folks. Obviously, Friday's report is not out yet, so keep a sharp eye on Friday afternoon's report to determine what type of illness or whether that may compromise Devon from coming back and being able to get on the field. But wanted to ask you about a trio that's dealt with their own head injuries, Kyle, for the New England Patriots. I'm talking about rookie defensive back Marcus Jones, wide receiver Devontae Parker, tight end Jonnu Smith. Devontae had been in concussion protocol for quite some time, suffered the injury a couple of weeks ago. He was back on the field yesterday. He was back on the field this week. It looked very promising for him, looking likely that he might be able to give it a go, although we're not completely sure on that. Marcus and Jonnu missed Wednesday's practice. They were back on the field on Thursday. From what you're hearing, as someone that is very well in tune with all of the AFC East injuries, what are you hearing on them? What can we expect realistically, at least in your expert in medical prognosis or hypothesis, I should say, with regard to this trio?
Yeah, we'll keep it a hypothesis because concussion management is
Yeah,
certainly unique. I mean, some guys can do great and have setbacks there, but
fair
all
enough.
look they could be on track to play. Now, Devontae Parker, he missed the past 2 games after suffering his head injury against the Arizona Cardinals.
Mm,
That was a whole issue with that, trying to play through that, and they'd stop the game. But he wasn't able to even practice the past 2 weeks. Like, he was DMPs for the past
right.
2 weeks. So it's promising to see limited, and you hope that he's continuing to ramp up. But everybody seems like they're limited participants on New England injury reports. So, but it seems like it's promising he's ramping up, but we don't know what he's doing out there. But it's reasonable that he could come back. As for Marcus Jones, he played through the game and they must have developed symptoms after. And this was going into not last week, but the week before. Of course, he missed last week.
Hmm.
I'm forgetting your opponent, but anyway, he didn't practice last week. But to see that he's a limited participant is promising. Once again, just if he's going to go through and not have any symptoms as he ramps up his activity to full contact. And then same with Jonnu Smith. I believe he collided with Hunter Henry, which led
Right.
to his concussion. And he's in the same boat as Marcus Jones. Now, we know when he suffers a concussion or how he did it, but once again, he's do not participate Wednesday, limited participant Thursday, just whether he can resume full contact with activity and be cleared by that independent neurologist. So they all appear on track to play, but we've seen where they have setbacks. So Friday's gonna be a big thing for all of them. And I hope, for the sake of competitiveness, that they all do play, because I think that's going to bring out the best in both teams and having the best players out there.
Yeah, without question. With regard to Devontae, obviously his being out for the last couple of weeks, you're right. That was suffered first play from scrimmage against the Arizona Cardinals. So it's been a long time for Devontae to have been on the shelf, and to see him back out on the field, definitely encouraging news for the New England Patriots. Marcus Jones, Jonnu Smith, both against the Cincinnati Bengals. Jonnu was removed from that game. Marcus played the rest of the game, and then reportedly experienced some symptoms after, and that's when they put him into concussion protocol. Neither of them were visible on the field on Wednesday. They did return on Thursday, so you have to wonder if they're just starting to amp this back up. The league and the Patriots and the Bills and every team right now, especially under the microscope when it comes to the head injuries and any injuries, really, that they're going to always err on the side of caution maybe even to the extreme. But when it comes to head injuries, you can never be too careful. So I encourage Patriots fans to be temperate in their reasonability when it comes to seeing Marcus Jones out there and Jonnu Smith. I know the fan base is really excited to see Marcus back out on the field, one of the more electrifying rookies that we've seen this year. But, folks, it's always tricky, as Kyle said, when it comes to concussions and when it comes to head injuries. You always have to err on the side of caution. So, Kyle, thank you, giving us some very good information on our list of injuries and the Bills' list of injuries as well. Almost done with you, my friend, but not just yet, because there is a lingering injury that is causing a lot of question among the fan base and even some beat writers and reporters like myself. That is to punter Jake Bailey. His window to return from injured reserve, folks, has been open since December 21st, yet Bailey is not back out on the field. What could his back injury potentially be keeping him off the field? Kyle's going to give his expert opinion and maybe even throw in a little bit of a reasoning as to why when this episode of the Locked On Patriots podcast concludes. But first, today's show is sponsored by BetOnline.net, your number one source for sports betting information, statistics, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from pro football to college bowl season to basketball. They've got it all at betonline.net. And if you love sports podcasts, you can even find those on BetOnline as well. The fastest, the easiest way to get your betting info. Head to the website today. Use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. Patriots fans, once again, I am joined by Dr. Kyle Trimble, doctor of physical therapy and the publisher and lead writer for bangedupbills.com. Also handles injury analysis for all of the AFC East. Kyle, it's been a trying week. There's no question about it. And we thank you once again for taking time out to lend your wisdom and counsel on a subject that I am thoroughly unqualified to speak on, and that's player injury and player health. But one of the questions I keep getting is, where is Jake Bailey? Jake Bailey, obviously, New England's incumbent starting punter, really started a career where everyone looked as if this kid was going to be the punter for years and years and years to come. All pro a couple of years ago. One of the better guys in the league, has struggled the last couple of years, including this year. Career lows in yards per attempt, in net yards, and in hang time. Went on injured reserve after week 9 with a back injury, and he's since missed every game since. The Patriots opened his 21-day window to return from injured reserve on Wednesday, December 21st. It still remains open. He still remains on the shelf. So in that regard, I know that the Patriots are very cryptic about sharing information, and it's difficult to glean a lot. But if you can walk us through what type of hindrances a back injury can have on a punter, what could possibly, just in your opinion, in your thought process, be holding Jake off the field this long?
So when you'd asked me about this with Jake Bailey, I had to dig into this a little bit. I know that he's been out since week 9. If I recall correctly, the Patriots had a bye week in week 10, and then they came back in week 11. He was doubtful on the injury report, and then I believe he went on to injury reserve shortly thereafter. And there wasn't any really information as to what was going on. I don't recall him being on the injury report before this, other than the doubtful designation. And then we don't have any indication of when he would have injured it there. So I've seen some of those things where guys are fine coming, going into a bye, and then they come out and they have some type of, mystery injury. And I've seen that with the Bills at times, and it's been frustrating. And I'm looking back at the Pro Football Reference, and I don't see anything in there before that. So it doesn't give us a ton of information what's going on. So I don't know that this was an acute injury that happened in the game, because usually we can find that stuff on film, or they have some type of record with that. But this has been more of a mysterious injury. But when you're dealing with punting with the back injuries, you're hopping up on the one leg, you're in a sense applying unequal pressure through the back, just because you're hopping on the one leg, you're kicking the other one up, you're going into extension in the back. there's a lot of core stability requires a kick in a football, even though you're using your legs more. So there's a lot of different factors that could go into the back complaints, which I'm going to go into in a second. But it's a lot of jarring motion, especially when he's hopping up on the leg like that as he punts the ball away. So anything that's hurting in the back is just going to be aggravated every time he goes to try punting. And even that plant leg is just, no matter what he does, it's just going to aggravate. So until he gets that pain eliminated, he's going to struggle with it there. So I dig into some of the different things that it could be, and these are more generalities, and I don't have
Mhm.
anything to support what's going on, but these are just
Right.
some things that we see here. So some of the thoughts I thought about were two conditions called excuse my pronunciation, I've been awful with this since grad school, but spondylolysis and spondylolisthesis. They're two different conditions. Basically, the first one
Mhm.
is where you get stress fracture in the spine and part of the vertebrae that is kind of part of that circle there.
Right.
And that kind of that cage area there. So it's not necessarily in the vertebral body, but it's more in the outside portion of that. But sometimes again, a stress fracture, and that can cause pain when you're going to extension or rotation there. So stress fractures sometimes don't always appear up on radio, like X-rays and whatnot. So sometimes they do extra imaging to find out what's going on, and sometimes it's not readily apparent. So that could be a possibility of that.
Right.
The progression of that is a spondylolisthesis, is basically where there is a fracture in there, and then there's degrees of slippage from one vertebrae over the top of the next one. There's like 1 to 4. So sometimes you can have a minor slippage, and then it can go to more severe slippage and cause other problems with that.
Mhm.
I would hope the team would catch something like that if that was the case
Right.
there. But the imaging is pretty specific for that, and there's a they look at certain angles for that, but that's more for other stuff that they
Right.
can get into. But that could be something like that there, and sometimes the slippage or the stress fracture can be more subtle, and you don't even really notice it's a problem until you start doing some of the activities like jumping, or
Mhm.
it can be due to a hit, it can be due to overuse, it can be congenital where you're kind of born with it, and then something kind of pops up as a
Right.
problem. So those are possibilities of that, and I have no basis other than my background as a physical therapist. So don't I don't want to be quoting me. Kyle said this. Well, I'm just going off of what it is. It does affect younger males, and it could be that there. There's also possibility of disc herniation. We see that unfortunately common in NFL football players. Rob Gronkowski had dealt with that several times, and then plenty of other players have dealt with that. So if that's the case, maybe they were letting things kind of calm down in there and see if they can get the disc to kind of go back in its normal area and manage the pain. And once again, speculation with that there. And then the final thing is sacroiliac joint dysfunction. Think about the sacroiliac joint. It doesn't really move too much there, but you have your sacrum, which is like kind of that triangle shape
Right.
at the bottom of the spine there. And then you have your two iliums, which are the flared out hip bones there. They connect there, and it makes a sacroiliac joint. And it's a relatively immobile joint, but you
Mm.
can get it irritated, and it can be aggravated by single leg activities and just that jarring motion there you see with NFL football, and of course just if he were to get hit or something too. So I'm just throwing out some just generalities, but the the Bills medical staff, they've been great, but the Patriots medical
Mm.
staff has been in place for a long time. They know how to manage these things. I'm surprised they haven't put him on the shelf, but the fact that they've been kind of, well, they did put him on the shelf for IR, but the fact that they said he hasn't been done totally gives you reason to believe that they might be trying to bring him back. But um, the fact that the Patriots are still in the playoff hunt makes me think that they're going to at least try to make him get out there. He doesn't need that ramp up time that you see other guys need. So if he were to come off injured reserve, get him back out there. But um, I don't know what's going on. I think this might be something we find out more about, but it's been interesting because you really see punters and kickers dealing with too many
Mm.
injuries. So
Yeah.
when it
Exactly.
does pop up, it's interesting, and I want to dig into it. But Patriots is like, you're not gonna find too much on them. That's how I found this season to be.
Yeah, it's a pretty impregnable fortress without
Yes.
question. The New England Patriots definitely keep injuries and really most everything close to the vest. But the one thing I can tell you, and they were, very candid and very forthcoming with all of the well wishes that they sent to the Bills today regarding Damar Hamlin. And as for Jake Bailey, folks, we'll continue to keep an eye out, but with only one practice left until Sunday, and the window obviously closing on Sunday as well. Time is running thin about seeing Jake Bailey. My gut reaction is that we're going to see Michael Pilardi out there again punting, and the next time you'll see Jake Bailey will probably be next year. Maybe, who knows? With the New England Patriots, personnel is always interesting, and it is with every team this time of year, as well as we look forward to not only a postseason, but also toward 2023. Patriots are still hopeful of that. The Bills definitely on their way to the postseason. Kyle, thank you so much for joining me today and for lending all of your wisdom and counsel, especially when it comes to Damar Hamlin and all of the insight that you're able to provide with some of the great, analysis on Patriots injuries. Before I let you go, my friend, please let everyone know where they can interact with you, where they can catch all of your great work, because you do phenomenal work, not just for the Bills, not just for the Pats, but throughout the entire AFC East.
So you find my work at bangedupbills.com. I cover the Buffalo Bills and the entire AFC East. You can also find my work over at Cover One, and my weekly appearances on Buffalo Late Night on the Buffalo Rumblings Podcast Network and on Locked On Bills every Thursday or Friday with Joe Marino.
Absolutely, folks. Definitely check that out. I'm always intrigued and always appreciative of Kyle's work. I know you will be too when it comes to all the injury work that he does. So, Kyle, thank you. Enjoy the game on Sunday. And again, best of, wishes to obviously the Hamlin family and Damar Hamlin. But thank you guys for all of the work that you do, keeping us updated on everything related to the Buffalo Bills. And, folks, we're not quite done for the week yet. It is our fifth show of the week, but we've got one more in store for you. Another Patriots Bills preview coming at you. That'll drop on Saturday morning, so make sure to check out that bonus episode right here on Locked On Patriots. In the meantime, because you make us your first listen every day, make your second listen our good friends over at Locked On Sports Today. All of the news, all of the sports, and they even give you the take of the day. What more can you ask for? Download Locked On Sports Today wherever you get your podcasts, on the Odyssey app, on YouTube, or any other major provider. Once again, I am Mike DeBate. I thank you very much for joining us here on Locked On Patriots and making us a daily part of your New England Patriots coverage. On behalf of Dr. Kyle Trimble, stay safe, folks. Stay well. Be the change you wish to see in the world. Have a great day, everyone.